our Assistant City Clerk for roll call.
Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
Councilmember Tiscarino.
Here.
Councilmember Overchuck.
I'm present.
Mayor Pro Tem Thorpe.
Here.
Mayor Wright.
Here. Vice Mayor Thorpe, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We do have a proclamation this evening. It is Parks and Recreation Month in July 2017. Whereas Antioch parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature, be active, and live healthier. And whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, supports independent living for seniors, and also improves the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas Antioch residents value recreation as it provides positive alternatives for children and youth to reduce crime and mischief, especially during non-school hours, it promotes the arts and increases social connections through events and celebrations, and promotes lifelong learning. And whereas Antioch Recreation provides employment opportunities to more than 150 students and young adults each year, a first job for many. And whereas our many facilities serve as the gateway to building friendships, strengthening community, and supporting economic prosperity. And whereas park and recreation agencies across the country are recognizing this month with summer programs, events, commemorations, and celebrations. And whereas the City of Antioch urges all its residents to recognize that parks are the cornerstone of our community and recreation enriches the lives of all residents and visitors. Now therefore, I, Sean Wright, Mayor of the City of Antioch, do hereby thank Antioch Recreation and Park Services staff, volunteers, and community partners for their dedication, support, and positive influence to the City of Antioch.
Mr. Mayor, can we have a motion?
Motion by Councilmember Orgachak. Do we have a second to accept this proclamation? Second by Councilmember Tiscarino. Please cast your votes.
There are 5 affirmative votes.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Nancy Kaiser, Parks and Recreation Director. On behalf of our Public Works Department and our recreation staff, I want to thank you for your continued support of the services, programs, and facilities and features that we provide our residents. Parks do make life better, and recreation programs connect our community. They connect our residents of all ages, and they strengthen our civic sense of place and our community pride, because we bring together everybody for socialization, creating new experiences, creating lifelong memories, and with our children, providing them new experiences and lifelong skill sets that they can carry into adulthood to continue that tradition of supporting community. So once again, I thank you for your support. And as a tradition I started many years ago, I come with pencils for everyone here tonight. So let me first pass these on to the clerk, and he will share them with you. And I will share them with everyone here this evening.
Thank you.
I will make sure that that proclamation is shared with our park staff and our recreation staff.
Announcements of civic and community events. Kenny Turnage.
Stay.
Hello, Mayor and Council. As you know, I'm part of Celebrate Antioch, and we are here to let you know about 4th of July. I know everybody's been hearing about it. Our 4th of July event here is going to be done downtown with a parade that starts at 11 o'clock. We are having a pancake breakfast as well downtown that is free for everybody that shows up to it. It starts at 8:30 in the morning. It's going to be in the parking lot of the Campanile Theater. Then afterwards, the fairgrounds will be opened up for the 4th of July festivities starting at 3 o'clock. Once again, there'll be live entertainment, car show, kids zone, all the things that you've been seeing going on the last few years since we've taken over doing this for the city. And it's expanding even more. The kids zone is being put on by I believe it's Got a Party from Brentwood, and they have everything going out there with multiple different apparatus such as rock climbing, different jumpies, different things to do for the kids to participate. From my understanding, Antioch is the only place really having 4th of July festivities and fireworks on the east side of Contra Costa County this year. So we're expecting a very big turnout. Looking forward to seeing all of you in the parade. I know some of you have received your applications. Thank you, Tony, for yours tonight. The other ones that I haven't received, I will be sending an email out tomorrow reminding you. I understand the big smile you have there, Mr. Thorpe. So yes, look forward to seeing all of you on Tuesday next week. Once again, pancake breakfast is at 8:30 and the parade starts promptly at 11. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacob Wallace, followed by Mike Pollard.
Good afternoon. My name is Jacob Wallace. I'm the Assistant Executive Director to the TJ Ward Foundation. TJ Ward is the starting safety for the Denver Broncos. We've been running an organization in this city, well, statewide, but it's based here in this city. On July 7th, next Friday, at Los Medanos Junior College, we like to provide starting at about 8:30, we like to provide a NFL experience for underserved youth and at-risk youth and just the general youth of the Tri-Valley area between Brentwood, Antioch, Pittsburgh. I actually would like to leave some form of flyer here. If you guys wanted to attend to support TJ, he and Teron, his brother, are holding the Ward Boys Academy. And this is our second annual one. They're proud Antioch locals, and Starling Moore will be joining us, and we're going to do our best to provide a free experience that most of the kids in this area probably wouldn't be able to afford on a Sunday. Where would I leave the flyers? Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Pollard.
Good evening, everybody. On 10th and 8th Street, the City Park, there's a monument there. And with the following inscription: July 4th, Anno Domini, 1951, the city was named 100 years ago for Antioch in Syria, where the disciples of Jesus Christ were first called Christians, Acts 11:26. Today, we rededicate ourselves to him in grateful memory of our founding fathers who envisioned a city and a world under the rule of the Spirit of Christ. I was 8 years old. I was probably playing baseball somewhere, but they had a picnic there, and they had this celebration. This Saturday, we're having a call to prayer, and we're going to pray for our mayor, our police chief, our city manager, our community, and the local church. It's at 7:30 a.m. I have invitations for everybody. Shall I? And I'll leave some of these. It's been posted. We put this together literally a week ago Monday. It is being very well received in the community. We expect maybe possibly a couple hundred people to show up. So it's going to be an awesome time. So we look forward to seeing the mayor, Ron Bernal, and all the council members. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other announcements of civic and community events? Announcements of board and commission openings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are currently accepting applications for the alternate member of the Board of Administrative Appeals, fill a vacancy for former alternate member April Usam Lemons, who was the council appointed as a regular member. This term would expire March in 2018. The term is normally a 2-year term. The Board of Administrative Appeals consists of 5 members and 1 alternate to be appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the majority of the council. They must be a resident of the city of Antioch. The board hears appeals regarding administrative decisions of any official of the city dealing with the municipal code interpretations. 30 members shall have experience in building construction trades and/or training in the California Code of Regulations. The meetings are held on the first Thursday of every month at 3 p.m. here in the City Council chambers. And the commissioner is also required to submit an FPPC, Fair Political Practices Commission Form 700 Statement of Economic Interest upon assuming office within 30 days and then every year thereafter. Newly appointed commissioners are also required to complete the AB 1234 ethics training within 1 year of the appointment. So this applications are available on the city website and city clerk's counter on the first floor and deputy city clerk's counter on the third floor.
Thank you. Are there any public comments? Marty Fernandez, followed by Louis Kidwell.
Mayor and council. About 14 years ago, I started getting my hair styled at a salon located at 2657 Summersville Road. The owner lives in Antioch. She's raising a family here and supports the city of Antioch. She employs 2 part-time people. A few years ago, she put in a nail polishing table and hired a person to run it. It did real well. At the end of last year, the city gave a permit to someone to open up a nail salon right next to her. She had to close her station and lay the person off. Last month, Nancy and I went in and were pleasantly surprised to see that she had remodeled, put a new floor in and everything. Looks great. What an investment. Last Friday we went in and she told us the good news that 2655 Summersville was now leased, so maybe the shopping center will start to grow again. However, that is 15 feet away from her front door and it will be a barber shop. 65% of her customers are currently men. I just don't understand the city of Antioch destroying a business like this. Doesn't anyone check to see if a new business is a good fit or will damage others that are already there? City planning, or lack of it, has completely destroyed any confidence I have in trying to muster with this city. The city has failed us again. Now this lady at Gary Adopian's fundraiser, she gave a $250 gift certificate. Years ago, when we had one of our officers disabled and we had the fundraiser at Pruitt Park, she gave $200 cash. I mean, the woman supported the city, and now she says she's probably gonna close because they want her to sign a 5-year lease and tie her house up with it. And she's not willing to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Louis Kidwell, followed by Jennifer Faddis.
My name is Louis Kidwell. I live at 2811 G Street in Antioch, and I'm here to enlist your help in a problem that's been going on for about 3.5 years. I live across the street from a house that on a regular basis has garage sales, and it's become a extreme irritant, and it's really become a problem for the neighborhood. It has cars and traffic and people that I don't necessarily want to see in large numbers in the neighborhood, and it's become a problem for us. I had sent emails to staff and tried to get something done, but they tell me that there's nothing in the municipal code that prohibits the number garage sales. So apparently some years ago there was some a rewrite of the municipal code or some sections in the municipal code, and that was written out. So I'm here to enlist your help in getting something back in. I'm proposing something really simple. Won't take much, and I've got something here for you. It's prohibited activities in residential districts, and it's simply adding one item to the end, and it says garage sales in excess of 3 sales per year, calendar year at the same address is prohibited. So we've been dealing with this for a long time. The neighbor that conducts the sale, or that the neighbor that hosts the sale, is not the person that actually conducts the sale. He rents the garage to a woman that conducts the sale, and they bring material in during the week, and then on the weekend they sell. So it's really more of a business, and but I've tried to talk to code enforcement, and they tell me that there's nothing they can do. So we need something in the ordinance to fix that. So I'm asking for maybe something this simple, maybe doing it as an emergency ordinance, so I don't have to wait 2 months for this activity to stop. I'd like somebody to get back to me if I could. You all have my emails. I sent them all. You all have one. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Faddis, followed by Frank Sterling.
Good evening, Mayor Wright and the City Council members. My name is Jennifer Faddis. I am the new East County Alcohol Policy Coordinator for the Center for Human Development. I am currently working towards creating a coalition of community members in Antioch. The goal of the coalition is to help reduce underage drinking here in this community. I am starting my work in the area by conducting one-on-one interviews with community members to gauge their perception on the issue of underage drinking. I have had the pleasure of interviewing Councilmember Wilson and would welcome the opportunity to interview other members of the council. Unfortunately, because I'm so new, I don't have any business cards yet, but I am reaching out to any community members who might be interested in sitting down with me. I am very excited to start this work in this community and to getting to know Antioch. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Frank Sterling.
How y'all doing tonight? And this replies to Chief Brooks back there. I don't know if he can hear me because he's involved in another conversation, but I came here tonight to be on the record that the Antioch Police Department has killed another citizen of this town. I don't know the story or the situation due to the lack of openness and without the body cameras that were thought to have happened. We only have the word of a department of officers who I, from my own experience, know are ready and willing to write misleading or false reports. It's clear from reading the city manager's reports that he feels it is not important to let everybody know that a citizen has been killed by the police department and hasn't noticed that in his reports. And I ask you to say their names. I asked last time I was here. Apparently that's not going to happen. Chief Tammany Brooks, I want to believe in you and our force, but are there things and behaviors in this department that you feel need to be changed? I want to speak openly. The Antioch Police Department has a long history of doing great things in our community, yes. But as you know, there's also a history of corruption, thievery, and false testimony, with some officers being brought on charges and doing time. Another part of the history I discovered was that there is a lack or a dearth of accountability and discipline for officers that have complaints filed against them. According to legal documents I acquired during my case, 2004 to 2009, there were 840 incidents of use of force, and all 840 incidents were deemed lawful and within department policy. There was no discipline. In fact, from 2006 to 2009, not a single officer was disciplined for use of force. Chief Brooks, what are you going to do to protect citizens from rogue officers like Chris Kent and Hoffman? Do you plan on holding these rogue officers accountable? In an article in the Antioch Herald, city manager called you the right person, that you have what it takes to lead. He also said you have proven yourself as a team player. My question is, do you have what it takes not only to lead, but to discipline officers who break the law or violate civil rights? Or are you merely a team player? You made a post in the Antioch Police webpage that is a little troubling to me, to be honest. One thing you wrote is that you are extremely proud and confident in the abilities of all the members of this department. I ask you, does that include Officers Hoffman and Kent, who attacked me in my own home, beat me to the ground with flashlights and choked me into unconsciousness, and then kicked me in the face and called me a faggot when I woke up? The city paid $250,000 for that settlement. I asked the city council, raise your hand if you care if your city pays that much. Okay. You also reported.
Thank you.
Could I finish my last paragraph?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I have more to say.
Are there any other public comments?
None received.
City Council Committee reports. Councilmember Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, none of my committees met between our last council meeting and now, but I did want to report out on June 15th, we had Antioch hosted a day of action for SB 1193, which involves human trafficking. We had an overwhelming amount of volunteers that come out and go to businesses that are required to post notices on how to report trafficking throughout East Contra Costa. I want to thank Chief Brooks, who was very supportive in that day, and it's great to have a police chief that supports causes like that and the fact that human trafficking is going on in East Contra Costa County. We had law enforcement officers from the cities of Brentwood, Pittsburgh, as well as Antioch. So it was a really successful day, and we'll probably be having some follow-up to the day of action for human trafficking out in East Contra Costa, hopefully back here in Antioch again. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Thorpe.
I have nothing to report.
Councilmember Tiscarino.
Yes, on Wednesday, Councilmember Orgachak and myself met with Terry House to deliberate the allocation of CDB funds to various organizations. The vast majority of existing organizations reapplied for funds along with 8 new ones. We had the pleasure of interviewing all the applicants, and we were impressed with all. We interviewed organizations by category that included homeless goals and strategies that include permanent housing for homelessness, prevention of homelessness. The other category was non-housing community development goals and strategies, which includes non-homeless special needs, youth, fair housing, tenant landlord counseling, economic development, infrastructure, and accessibility and administration. And the third category was affordable housing goals and strategies. Through this process, we believe this process went very smoothly, but there were some difficult choices to be made. But the subcommittee did come to consensus, and we'll be allocating the funds when it is approved by the City Council. They'll be brought forth either soon, right? I think it's, I don't know if it's tonight or the next meeting. That's it. The Longtree Golf Course Committee met. I unfortunately couldn't make it, but I will yield my report to the mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Overtop.
Councilmember Tiscarino just reported out for both. Thank you.
We did have a Lone Tree Golf Course meeting yesterday. It was a rough winter with all the rain, and so we saw a decrease in the golf course revenue and courses played. But they are doing really well on the beverage and food side with lots of events and doing well there. So we will be talking about their MOU later on today in today's program. Thank you. As far as the mayor's comments, we had the opportunity as a council this weekend to attend several events on Saturday. One was Junior Giants baseball, to go out there and have 400 youth in our community to be able to participate in baseball, many of them who cannot afford to play Little League, who get to go out and do that over the course of the summer because of donations and the goodwill of the people of Antioch and the Giants. So wonderful ceremony as they did their opening day, and they are they are short in coaches. So there's 400 students or youth that got to play. There are 200 that couldn't because we didn't have enough coaches. And so looking forward to next year, if anybody enjoys baseball, even if you don't enjoy baseball, if you enjoy youth and going out and helping them, it would be wonderful for us to be able to see the other 200 young Antioch residents who maybe couldn't afford to play Little League that could participate in Junior Giants be able to play. So I ask you to look forward to that if you can. And then we went from there to Relay for Life, and Relay for Life had a wonderful 24 hours. They had already raised $30,000 by the time we started opening ceremonies. So a wonderful event and great time. So some wonderful things happening in and around Antioch. I challenge you to come out and enjoy the 4th of July with us. I want to thank Celebrate Antioch for all that they do and the committee that's put that on. There's a lot of work and effort that goes into that. And as a council, we want to thank you. So moving on to consent calendar. Is there anything that needs to be pulled from the consent calendar? Councilmember Thorpe.
Item D.
Item D. Any other items that need to be pulled from the consent calendar? If not, do I have a motion on the remaining items? Motion by Councilmember Ogerchuk. Do we have a second on the remaining items? Second by Councilmember Wilson. Please cast your votes.
There are 5 affirmative votes.
Thank you. And we will open up item D, Second Amendment to the Consultant Service Agreement with Municipal Financial Services for the preparation of an update of the water and sewer rate fee study. And I'll turn that over to our City Manager, Ron Bernal.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. Lynn Filson, our Assistant City Engineer, is available to answer any questions Councilmember Thorpe may have.
Hello, Lynn. Yeah, no, I was just curious. So I had asked for water rates to be an agendized item a while ago, and I was just curious what a timeline would look like before this gets to us, because I've gotten a lot of questions about it, and I'd like to see some action and for us to work on it.
I'll go ahead and jump in on that. Thanks, Lynn. So this item, we're going to start working on this in the next month or so. Once council approves it, the consultant will take all of the budget information through the closeout of the year, which happens around September or so, and then he'll make the calculations on what the new rates need to be for both water and sewer in order to cover all the costs. And council should expect to see this come back after the first of the year, at the end of January, beginning of February, because this is a Prop 218 process. That's when the presentations would start, and then council would work towards a vote of the people for those water rate increases or decreases for sewer and water.
So help me understand this relative to, I guess, the tiered water rates as a result of the drought, since you're saying that this would go out for the people to vote on.
So the water rates, we went 3 years ago. We brought a 5-year study to the City Council, and so this July begins the 3rd year of that 5 years, and so there's 2 more years subsequent to it. And the reason we didn't bring a new rate study to council this year is because the rates that were being increased were keeping in line with the additional costs of running the operation in the program and the usage of the water. So the decision was made by the council back in 2015 when those rates were approved to go to a two-tiered method of water usage. And so one of the things we've asked the consultant to do is to look at both a 2-tiered and a single rate of usage when we bring this back to the council the next time.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just follow up, Councilmember Thorpe. I believe you have asked this to be agendized, and the city manager and I have discussed, and he's gave me the same calendar. It is something that we have been discussing and trying to get agendized. So, anything else on item D?
I would like to make a motion to.
Motion by Councilmember Thorpe, second by Councilmember Ogerchuk. Please cast your votes.
There are 5 affirmative votes.
Moving on to the public hearing, item number 3, resolution accepting and adopting the proposed 5-year capital improvement program. Turn it over to City Manager Ron Bernal.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. This is the 5-year capital improvement program, or CIP, for 2017 through 2022, and Lynn Filson will make the presentation on this.
Good evening. I'll do better on this one. I had all the whats, but not the when on the last one. This is the same 5-year CIP that we brought to you earlier and went over in the study session thoroughly. We added one project that was not in the earlier version, and that is a council chamber remodel. So that's been added to the CIP, and that is getting paid for out of PEG money, which is a special fund that we receive from the communications tax on the communication bills, and it can be used for public and education capital improvement type projects. But other than that, this is the same CIP that we discussed at the earlier meeting.
This is a public hearing. Are there any public comments? I will open the public hearing. Are there any public comments on this topic?
None received.
I will close the public hearing. This item is now before council. Are there any questions, comments from council? Councilmember Tiscarino.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn, for your report. I just have a question on your new addition and which is the city council chambers. I know we had in 2014, or I believe 2012 or 2014, when we were going through these facilitation sessions with our council members, and we had some ideas what to do with the makeup of the city council, and part of the makeup of city council is to do some discussion, deliberations, and things like that during council time. And the positioning of the dais was kind of mentioned at that time. Is that something that you guys were considering when you were doing the remodel?
This is just getting into the CIP right now. We're looking at hiring an architect to start, producing plans. We certainly would like to take into account all of the input from the city council in any changes that we do. So.
Okay. So again, and I imagine there's records or minutes to that effect, but it was a good conversation. I think at that particular time, all council members were pretty much enthusiastic about trying to convert this dais into one where it's more feasible. We can look each other in the eye and have discussion too during council meetings.
I will make sure we go and get the video from those meetings, and that the architect has that information when they come up with the redesign.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Councilmember Thorpe.
I'd like to make a motion that the city council conduct. I'm sorry, we're approving the resolution. That the city council approve the resolution approving the city's 5-year capital improvement program for 2017, between 2017 and 2002.
22?
2022.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Wilson. Please cast your votes.
There are 5 affirmative votes.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, ordinance amending tobacco and paraphernalia retailer regulations by repealing Antioch City Code sections 516-01 and 68-14 and repealing and replacing sections 9-5.203 and 9-5.3843. I'll turn it over to City Manager Ron Bernal.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. Community Development Director Forrest Ebbs will be making the presentation on this item.
Good evening, Mayor Wright and the City Council. Before you this evening is an ordinance that would amend our current regulations in the municipal code affecting tobacco retailers. This ordinance goes a long ways to addressing many of the concerns that the council has expressed in the past years about small tobacco retailers and just the general proliferation of tobacco sales in our community. What you have before you, I believe, is a good solution. But I've had the opportunity to speak with Denise Dennis of the Contra Costa County Health Department's Tobacco Prevention Program just in the last couple of days, and I believe you received a letter today. And that conversation was very enlightening. It brought up issues in kind of the context of tobacco regulations in a new way, and there may be some opportunities that the council would like to pursue to go even a step further than what this draft ordinance currently does. So I would like to walk you through where we are right now, and then maybe suggest some of those items brought up by Ms. Dennis, and see if there's a different direction that the council might like to take. So if you'll entertain me for one moment here. So the ordinance that you have before you does a couple of things. First off, it creates new definitions. These definitions address drug paraphernalia, which is interesting. We don't think of tobacco stores and drug paraphernalia necessarily hand in hand, but a lot of times there's an overlap there. So we define drug paraphernalia. We define tobacco retailers very specifically. And this is replacing existing definitions. But the most significant thing that this ordinance does is it actually prohibits the creation and operation of any new tobacco or paraphernalia retail business in the city. So as defined, anyone who sells tobacco products are considered a tobacco retailer. There are two exceptions to this. The first is a convenience store when associated with a gas station, so a small gas station mini mart. The second is a store greater than 5,000 square feet, so your larger operators. Beyond those two, nobody else would be allowed to be a tobacco retailer. I should note that by definition, there are some very specific exemptions related to medical use or prescription type things. It's a pretty standard exemption. I can't imagine we'd ever encounter that, but it's there nonetheless. So essentially in the city of Antioch, you would no longer be able to open a tobacco shop. Under today's rules, there's very limited opportunities, specifically in one heavy commercial zone we mostly see along Sunset. It would take away that opportunity. In addition, this ordinance addresses existing businesses. And whereas today those existing businesses can operate indefinitely and the businesses can be sold and transferred, this puts a 5-year cap, puts us out to 2023. After that time, I'm going to make sure I get the date right here. After 2020, we have January 1, 2023, it would be unlawful for a person to sell or transfer ownership of these tobacco retailer shops. So the tobacco shops that we have today could operate indefinitely without question, but after January 1, 2023, they couldn't be sold. They may continue to operate, but they would have to go away when that ownership decides to step aside. They wouldn't be able to be handed off to the next generation of operators. It's a way of amortizing this use. It's a way that balances some property rights concerns and some basic constitutionality concerns that our city attorney and our legal team have expressed. It balances that with the city's desire to see these businesses regulated and limited. So over time, the few that we have would be limited, and they would be reduced over time, beginning in January of 2023. The idea of 5 years, basically, it in the finding and the resolution supports this. Over 5 years, it's expected that a tobacco operator would be able to recoup their full costs of starting a business. These businesses don't require a lot of overhead, meaning most of them are just shelves and a little bit of tenant improvement, as opposed to a restaurant, which would require a full commercial kitchen. That's a huge investment. these are a relatively small investment. It would allow somebody 5 years to recoup that, and beyond that, they would no longer be paying off a business loan, presumably, or paying down their initial investment. So that's where the 5-year period came about. So that's the basics of the ordinance that you have in front of you. This did go to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission did recommend approval. The letter that you received from Ms. Dennis spoke to some actions that are occurring in other jurisdictions, and I believe actually, probably as we speak, the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco are looking at a pretty aggressive ordinance that would prohibit the sale of a whole variety of tobacco products, specifically flavored tobacco products, and a lot of these relate to increased usage among young people. Flavored tobacco products, menthol cigarettes, those little packs of cigars that I guess are more prone to be used by, a cigar for 99 cents. You can't sell cigarettes individually in California, but you can sell those really small cigars. So this would prohibit those. And in addition, some cities are looking at requiring that pharmacies be tobacco-free. I know some pharmacies, I don't want to go on record, I don't recall exactly which, it used to be Long's Drugs, so whatever they've become, have gone tobacco-free, but not all. And that combination, that package of changes is something that's actually catching on in California, and other jurisdictions are doing this. Yolo County, for example, has done this. So that would be the next step beyond what I've proposed to you this evening. And so the package that you have right now, it certainly would suffice, but I would like to hear the council's thoughts on the next step. At the same time, there were a couple of technical issues brought up to my attention that I think we would benefit from having another legal look at it now that we have a new interim city attorney, to look a little bit closer just to make sure that we don't accidentally put ourselves in an undefensible position. And I'd just like to get that clarified. So as much as I'd love to see this adopted tonight, I think I would ask for 30 days to just check on some of those points, to bring that back. And at the same time, if the council would like to go to that next step further, the proper action might be to actually table this, allow us to develop a more robust ordinance if that's your desire, and then come back at a future date. So there we are. I'll leave my report at that and happily take any questions you may have.
This is a public hearing. I'd like to open up the public hearing. Are there any comments from the public?
I do have one that was provided just for being read into the record. And Mr. Ebbs, you referenced a letter that the public has not seen, and I do not have a copy of it. You can make copies available so the public can also see those, and for the record as well.
Either Jamie or Jaime, Rich. I want to urge the council to pass the ordinance with stricter tobacco regulations, reducing access for young people in any way that we can protect our youth from the boom and possible risk for addiction for our youth. Vaping is growing among young people, and we need to stop this trend. Are there any other public comments?
None of them were received.
This public. One more public comment.
5 minutes.
Denise Dennis, you have 5 minutes to speak on this.
I won't take that much time since your staff did a very good report. I did just want you to know that I was here, and if you had any questions about the actions that the Board of Supervisors are considering, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
If there are no other public comments, the public hearing portion of this is closed, or the public comment portion. This item is now before council. Questions or comments? Councilmember Ogorchak.
So it's been, I think, this is almost the third year now that we've been waiting for this to come forth, and I appreciate the fact that it finally is, and I appreciate the letter. I apologize, Denise, I forgot your last name. In reading the letter, I didn't even think about the vapors and the menthol or the little cigarettes that look like cigars that are sold individually. There is an issue with some of the stores still selling, the smaller stores like Dutch by Dairy, the one that has closed, and the other that sell them single cigarettes, even though they say they don't. That one did, I know for a fact. And San Francisco is passing a stricter ordinance, and I think it has to do with the doorway. I think it's like 50 feet now that they're extending it, so that also is not in here.
Yeah.
So in reading, maybe we can put something in there about the smoking close to the doors. 30 days seems fine, but I would truly ask that we not go past the 30 days. Because Tracy Nerlin was here when we started this. And so it's way past the 6 months. So I appreciate this being done and accomplished, but I just really would like to push it forward. So I thank you for your time. And I don't have a problem with if the council wishes to wait the 30 days to make it stronger. Thank you.
I don't have a problem with tabling it so that we can address the stricter policies.
Would you prefer to continue it?
Continue. Councilmember Thorpe.
Just so under tobacco retailers, so would like a cigar bar would be a tobacco retailer?
It would.
A hookah bar would be a tobacco retailer?
Yes.
Okay.
Councilmember Tiscarino.
I do have one question that doesn't address it, but just for my clarification purposes. The 5-year cap, I support that. I think that's a good thing. And within that 5-year cap, I guess an existing retailer can sell and transfer it over within that 5-year cap, right? Now, if you surpass the 5-year cap, and this isn't the scenario that I'm bringing across, and I don't even know if it exists in the city of Antioch or not, but it could be a potential issue. Family business that they want to transfer over to a family member, but they want to do an official sale. Would that be something that would be not able to do? So.
We've thought of that.
Okay, you did think of that.
As defined, there are 3 things that would constitute a seller transfer. The first is a change to the name of the operator on the City of Antioch business license. So that's someone's name. Second is a change in the leaseholder of the commercial space. So sometimes you get into these weird, the business stays in my name, but you take over the lease, and I'm kind of a silent, absent partner. And third is a change to the name listed on any other official government document related to the business. So in the situation you described, what we would expect people to do would be to form some kind of an LLC, include family members within that, anticipating that ultimate transfer. But they likely would not include outside parties in an LLC operating a business collectively.
No, I appreciate that. So at least there was some thought put into it. Okay,
Yeah.
that was great. Thank you.
Councilmember Thorpe.
So I wasn't here when this was brought up, I guess, 3 years ago. So I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, or I shouldn't say I've always had a problem with like the smoke shops here in town, the 7-Eleven selling the single cigar, because we know what they're doing. I do have an issue with like a hookah bar and a cigar, but I am concerned that that the issue that many of us have been around these smoke shops, not necessarily people who are responsible in keeping their troubles out of our way. For example, I've yet to be to as an example, to a cigar bar where I see people hanging out outside of the cigar bar creating problems, harassing other people. Those are the types of things we see around these smoke shops. So I have a little concern about that. I haven't heard any problems about the hookah bar over in Brentwood or the one in Pittsburgh, and so now we're about to eliminate that possibility here in Antioch.
Sure. If I could respond to that, the basis for a lot of this is public health, and that's sort of where our legal analysis has told us to direct our efforts. So we're looking at this from, when youth have access or increased access. If it's the council's will, we could look and see if the same studies, if they isolate hookah bars or cigar bars and say these are a lesser offender, again, if it's the council's will, and we could isolate, maybe treat those differently. Because that's how we would go about kind of making a rational exception for them.
Right. No, I appreciate that, and if that is the case, please do. If it comes out that it is exactly the same, then I'm more than happy to leave that alone. But thus far, I have not heard of those types of problems coming out of these types of establishments.
Sure.
Councilmember Overchop.
Do we have a hookah bar or a cigar bar in town?
I'm not aware of any.
I don't think so. So I am not in favor of that. If we're going to do this, I would like to do it as the strictest that we can. I'm having a hard time with the 2023, but I'm kind of pushing back on that one because I feel that we've kind of waited for this for a long time. But just because at this moment we don't have one, we don't know that won't create a problem with the youth going in there and doing things they shouldn't do. So again, with the safety and health of our children, I just don't think it's something that we want to look at to have in town. That's my thought.
So as council, it sounds like the consensus is to continue this for 30 days.
So that if we could continue it to a date certain, July 25th. And it sounds to me like the direction is to pursue some of these more robust restrictions like we're seeing in the letter that you received relating to flavored tobacco and that sort of thing. I did hear sort of one side and the other on the hookah bar and cigar bar, and to give me a little guidance, I could probably appreciate a little bit more direction on that, because should I include that in my analysis?
In your analysis, I would include the analysis that Councilmember Thorpe asked, and then when it comes up for public hearing on the 25th, we can debate.
Sounds great. Sounds good. I'll do that, and I can build it in a way that it can be removed if appropriate.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 5.
Mr. Mayor, do you want to take a motion on number 4 to continue it to a date specific?
Sure. Do we have
a number of days?
Yeah. Do we have a motion to continue item number 4 to the July 25th council meeting? Motion by Councilmember Thorpe, second by Councilmember Ogerchok. Please cast your votes.
There are 5 affirmative votes.
Item 4 has been continued. Item number 5, consideration and final determination of Board of Administrative Appeals decision regarding Antioch Municipal Code violations at 701 Wilbur Avenue, Antioch, owned by Joseph and Deborah Bozeman. Turn it over to City Manager Ron Bernal.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. Our interim City Attorney, Derek Cole, will be making the presentation on this.
And Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the presentation will be short. This matter has been the source of some extensive discussions between the property owner and his legal counsel and our community development director in my office. And ultimately, it is the belief of both parties that we should try to address some of the longer term, bigger issues associated with the property from a zoning standpoint and land use standpoint, and that it would be helpful to take a breather and try to see if we can reach some resolution either in the interim or long term or both. And so it would be our request that the council take no action on this item, that it continue this item. We will definitely move quickly so that if it is the council's pleasure to proceed in this manner, we will definitely move quickly so that if there's not progress made, we will immediately bring this back to you at the first available date. But I do note that this is something where I feel that there's a reasonable chance of a resolution, and I think it would behoove all of us to take that opportunity. So it would be my request that the council simply continue this item and let staff work with the property owner.
If we choose to continue this item, then we don't need to hold the public hearing. So we do still need to open the public hearing.
Yes, and I think anyone who's here to speak on this item should be allowed to speak, but then you would take no action. And so I guess the question is, are there cards or are there any?
So I will open the public hearing. Are there any requests from the public to speak on this item?
I have not received any requests, and you should ask no, that would be it. There are no requests.
Very good. I will close the public hearing portion of this. This item is now before council. So do we have a motion to continue this item?
I want to
Councilmember
make a
Ogurchak.
motion to continue the item to see what resolution can be resolved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Tiscarino. Please cast your votes.
There are 5 affirmative votes.
Item 5 has been continued with hopes of a resolution. Moving on to the council regular items. We are on to item number 6, Economic Development Commission appointments for 3 full-time vacancies expiring June 2021. I had the opportunity to be able to interview our candidates, 2 of which, Joseph Adebayo and Robert Kilborn, are already on the Economic Development Commission and have requested to continue. And of the other, and I have, I'm nominating them for continuance. And of the other interviews that I did, Tim McCall, who's in the audience, if you'd like to stand, has also been nominated to join the Economic Development Commission. So I would put forward those 3 names, Tim McCall, Robert Kilborn, and Joseph Adebayo for the Economic Development Commission. Do we have a motion? Motion by Councilmember Ogurchak. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Tiscarino. Please cast your votes.
There are 5 affirmative votes.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for your service, Tim. Item 7, Statewide Community Infrastructure Program, SCIP for Hydorn Village. I turn it over to our city manager, Ron Bernal.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. Assistant City Engineer Lynn Filson will be making this presentation.
Good evening. In March of this year, this City Council passed a resolution that allowed property owners in Antioch to join the SCIP program, which is the Statewide Community Infrastructure Program, which allows them to join together with other property owners throughout the state of California to form one assessment district, so that they have only one administrative cost and can sell bonds for multiple projects when one project would be too small and too costly to do such. The City of Antioch has received our first application, and the City Council did ask that we bring each application to them, although it's not required by the state law. So the application we have right in front of us is for the Hydorn Village property, which is just off Hydorn Road, and it's Hydorn Ranch Road, and it's a 117 unit subdivision. The application, which you have a copy of, is for $1,187, $1,187,550, and this will put an assessment of approximately $10,128 on each home, which will be paid off, and it will add $800 to the property tax bill for each unit. This will make the taxing rate on the house go from 1.65 to 1.79%. This pays for the improvements along Hydorn Ranch Road that's being required by the property owner or by the conditions of approval, as well as the park and lieu fees. The developer is putting in money himself. The company is putting in money also, so it's not that all of this is being financed through this assessment district. And we have a representative from Meritage Home here if we have any questions that you would like to ask the developer.
Questions or comments from council? Councilmember Thorpe.
So prior to this, how were these improvements financed?
Back in the day, we had huge assessment districts for Hillcrest Avenue, Deer Valley Road, Lone Tree Way, in the hundreds of millions of dollars that many developers were involved with. Pretty much everyone in Southeast Antioch is in one of those, or if not both of those, assessment districts. Since that time, we haven't had any big development that's required, major infrastructure improvements for, arterial roadways. So we really haven't even had the issue come up. So this is kind of a nice way of doing it, since this is a small development and we do not have a large assessment district to do such a project.
So this one is in the Sand Creek focus area, right?
No.
No,
It's just north of the Sand Creek focus area.
North of the Sand Creek focus area. Oh, okay.
It's kind of a little infill in that area. It's right near the Heritage Baptist Church. It kind of circles around the back of the church.
It's adjacent to the Sand Creek focus area?
Very close, yeah.
Okay. Alrighty.
Any other questions or comments? If not, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that the City Council adopt the resolution approving the application for Meritage Homes for participation in the Assessment District 17-03 through the SCIP for the Hydorn Village Division.
We have a motion by Councilmember Overchalk. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Tiscarino. Please cast your votes.
There are 5 affirmative votes.
Moving on to item number 8, authorization to extend the agreement with Antioch Public Golf Incorporated for the operation and management of Lone Tree Golf Course. Turn it over to City Manager Ron Bernal.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. Our Parks and Recreation Director, Nancy Kaiser, will be making this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Bernal. Good evening again, Mayor, members of the Council. One of Antioch's premier features is our Lone Tree Golf Course, and the city has had Antioch Public Golf Incorporated, or Corporation, Antioch Public Golf Incorporated, otherwise known as the Corporation here in the community, under contract to fully operate Lone Tree Golf Course since 1982. As the golf course has improved and enhanced its operation and its programs and services throughout the years, there have been a number of amendments and changes to the agreements. Today, we are operating under an agreement that was approved in 2002, which called for a term that ended on June 30th, 2017. Staff has been in discussion with members of the Board of Directors of Antioch Public Golf for approximately 2 years, working on a new agreement that is comprehensive and takes the golf course well into the future for this community. We continue to have those discussions, and in an effort to create a well-rounded new agreement that takes into account all of the recent changes at the golf course, including the new event center that was added, some of the other improvements to the course. We are asking that we extend the current agreement through June 30th, 2018. No changes to the existing operations, no changes to any agreements, so that we can continue exploring development of, again, a very comprehensive, robust, and well-developed agreement well into the future. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Councilmember Overchalk.
I'm for this. I don't have a problem with this, but the only thing that I would ask is that we get a copy of the agreement. So since one wasn't attached to the packet, can you please send one out?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wilson.
Not a question, more a comment. I'm in agreement with this. I'm happy to see that you're looking to the future of the golf course, because I visit the golf course many times, but happy to hear that a plan is being put in place for that. Thanks.
Motion, Councilmember Overchalk.
I'll make a motion the City Council authorize the City Manager to extend the current agreement with the Antioch Public Golf, Inc. through June 30th, 2018, which will allow for the development and update of a new comprehensive operational agreement with Antioch Public Golf, Inc.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Thorpe. Please cast your votes.
There are 5 affirmative votes.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 9, resolution approving and adopting a 2-year operating budget for the fiscal years 2017 through 2019. Turn it over to City Manager Ron Bernal.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. This is an important item for the City Council tonight and for the city as a whole, being that the proposal is to adopt a 2-year budget that will run from 2017 through June 30th, 2019. This is a product of 4 budget study sessions that the council held that began in mid-April, and every fund was studied in detail and honoring staff and the council's commitment to strong management of the taxpayers' money. That we're presenting a balanced budget for fiscal year 17-18 with projected reserves of 46% or approximately $26 million. We have substantial reserves in the city right now, and we have a strong and improving economy, which is positive. We also have an eye on some future challenges that have been identified, the 2 biggest ones being the unfunded liabilities and the CalPERS retirement system and the impact of rising costs to that program. Council has made a commitment to invest in Antioch through this budget, making some strategic staffing increases in the police department, in code enforcement, in our community development department, and also in the finance department, with goals of running a more efficient operation, a better operation, and one that collects as much revenue as we can due to the city. The city council is also in the study sessions made some other proposals, such as increasing library hours by 7 hours a week, which will add 1 day a week to the operation and a librarian and some additional programs. They've also indicated that they'd like to invest in a public relations and marketing firm or firms to help the city of Antioch brand ourselves and do a better job of marketing. Council has also indicated that they want to invest in some nonprofits that partner with the city to make our quality of life for the community better. And so over the next couple of years, several of the most important issues that the City Council and the staff will be looking into is, 1, continuing to strive to reduce Part 1 crime, which is our violent crime in the community, and Council, by virtue of adding 103rd sworn officer to the 2018 budget and 104th to the 2019 budget, is making efforts to continue in that area. The other important one, or one of the important ones, is the future of Measure C, which is the 1/2 cent sales tax that sunsets in 2021, and the need to either reapprove that measure or look at other alternative measures so we make sure that Antioch maintains fiscal stability and sustainability going forward. And then the other one, which I've already mentioned, is just the impacts of CalPERS and increased costs, which the city does not have control over, and which also is impacting not just every other city in the state that's part of the system, but also the state system as well. Our goals as a city continue to be to continue to reduce crime, to address homelessness and blight issues, to protect and capitalize on our pre-1914 water rights, which are a very valuable asset, and Antioch is unique in having that, and we are looking into, as council is aware, the possibility of constructing a desalination project in Antioch, which would give us a sustainable and reliable source of water for years to come. We also are very interested in economic development and new development, and that includes our downtown area, the northern waterfront, the Sand Creek Focus area, as well as the Summersville Town Center area, and also the BART station, the new BART station, which is scheduled to open in spring of 2018, and the importance of capitalizing on that valuable asset that will connect Antioch with the rest of the Bay Area. The other thing that's very important and not to forget, it's been completed for a couple of years now, is the widening of Highway 4 and the connection of Highway 116 with Highway 4. With the BART project is an investment of almost $1.3 billion through the Center of Antioch, which is very important, very significant, and will help us in our efforts moving forward. I just like to finalize with the fact that the budgets presented are adopting 2-year budgets, which I mentioned, and that we will be doing a budget review before the middle of 2018, where we will bring back where we are with the budget, what are the results of the measures and the additional staffing that council would be approving if they adopt this budget. And so that would be something the council will be looking forward to. We also have item number 10, which is a resolution of the Antioch Public Financing Authority adopting a 2-year budget, and also item number 11, which is a resolution of the successor agency and housing successor to the Antioch Development Agency, also adopting a 2-year 2017 to 19 budget. Our finance director, Merchant, will be making a presentation on all 3 of these items when I turn the microphone over to her, and so those will be items that we would ask council to act on individually after she has concluded her presentation. I'd like to thank everybody for all of their hard work in preparing this budget, especially our finance director, Dawn Merchant, who does a lot of this work herself and does an excellent job. It's a big job, and so I'd just like to thank her and her staff and the departments that put this budget together, and the council for the time that they took to really dive into the details and make sure that this budget is what's going to be best for the city of Antioch going forward. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dawn for her presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Well, the city manager said it all, so. But let me show you where the numbers are right now, and then we'll delve a little bit into the specifics of it. So as you can see, for the revised 16-17, we're projecting to close this year with almost $26 million in fund balance, with an excess of just over $3 million. And as I do mention in the report, there will probably be slightly more of an excess once we see the salary savings for everybody that's not police, because we don't adjust for those. And then also, since we don't close the books until September, we accrue expenditures and revenues back that relate to prior to June 30th. And some items may come in better, a little bit higher than we projected. For fiscal year 17-18, as Mr. Bernal mentioned, we do have a balanced budget with a little bit of a surplus of $95,000, bringing the ending fund balance again to just over $26 million, with a 46.73% unassigned reserve, meaning it's 46.73% of our total revenues. And in fiscal year 18-19, we do begin some deficit spending to the tune of $2.8 million, ending balance of just over $23 million, but our reserve remains at 41.29%. Just a little bit different way of looking at it here. Our total revenues we're projecting for 16-17, just over $55.6 million, only spending $52.6, where again you see our excess of just over $3 million. 17-18, our revenues dropped down a little bit to $54 million. If you do recall, there was some grant funding that is going away, so that's part of the big drop in that number. And our expenditures are increasing to $54 million. One of the major increases is, for example, in police, we have accounted for salary savings in that $52 million. The $54 million assumes all 103 positions are filled for the entire year, because we have to budget for the ultimate impact of that. Then we have a slight surplus of $95,063. In fiscal year 18-19, our revenues do increase slightly to just under $54.8 million, and our expenditures increased to $57.5 million. This is a result of all the contracts with employee groups that have been approved, as well as rising pension costs. And that brings us to deficit spending of $2.8 million, which is coming out of our reserves. However, we still have a very healthy reserve at the end of 18-19, and I'd just like to say at this point, we're not going bankrupt. I know that term is getting thrown out there. It's definitely something that the City Council needs to be very conscious of, though, because if our revenue measure does go away, that could have some serious consequences. So it's really important as soon as this budget's adopted, that the council and staff and community members start evaluating what we can do to extend that measure or create a new one, as the city manager said. So how did we get to these numbers? As a result of all our study sessions, we took some direction from council and incorporated into this final budget document that's before you this evening. So one of the things we did was increase the property tax projection from 5% to 6% for both fiscal year 18 and fiscal year 19. We should get the increase in assessed values sometime after July 1st from Contra Costa County. As soon as we have that number, we will release that to the City Council. We also reduced the projected increase in the police salaries from 4.5% down to 3.5% in fiscal year 18-19. That was a result of the mayor informing us that some of the salary surveys had been completed that our police department does compare themselves to. And so 3.5 was a very reasonable number for the projected salary increases. They get at a range. Addition of 103rd sworn police officer position in fiscal year 18, and I would just like to clarify for sworn police, that means any rank of police. So whether that be a captain, a lieutenant, sergeant, patrol officer, the 103 is not a whole 103 patrol. So that 103rd really comes in the form of approving the sergeant position so we don't eliminate an officer position behind or vice versa. So just wanted to make that clear. The 103 positions is all ranks of sworn police. And then in fiscal year 19, the addition of 104th sworn police officer position. And as discussed with council, when we do the mid-year, this will be discussed again, because if our situation at that time does not seem that we could fund 104th, if something else happens, we won't do that. You know, that will definitely happen before the year starts. But if the city still looks like it's in a good financial position, then we'll get council authorization to continue keeping that in the budget. Also, addition of $250,000 in overtime funding for police proactive details, maintaining the funding for a vacant CSO community service officer position. If you recall, initially when we first began the budget study sessions, that position was vacant, so we had removed funding for that so that we could add a sergeant position. And in the discussions, the City Council wanted to maintain this position. That's why we went up to the 103 positions. And then $150,900 in funding to the Contra Costa County Library to provide 35 hours per week at the West 18th location. Funding of 2 positions for proactive code enforcement team. These are contract positions. $60,000 in funding for a landscape surge. Addition of a planner and development services tech for building and community development. And then $100,000 for a public relations marketing firm. $20,000 in funding to Celebrate Antioch, $13,000 additional funding to Arts and Cultural Foundation in fiscal year 18, and $32,000 in fiscal year 19. Part-time help funding for business licensing, and $75,000 in funding in fiscal year 18 for an update to the city's cost allocation plan. So that number is not in fiscal year 19 because that's just a one-time cost for a consultant to prepare that study. So some other highlights of this budget, as in fiscal year 18, it includes the addition of 4 new positions, one being the police sergeant, the assistant or the associate planner, which is on this slide, the development services engineering tech, which is on this slide, and also the registered veterinary technician for the animal services. And then in fiscal year 18-19, the addition of the 104th police officer position. And as mentioned in the staff report too, this is a very fluid budget document. You are adopting 2 years. However, it's not carved in stone. It can be amended, revised at any time, and staff will continually monitor this budget for any amendments that need to be made. There will be a mid-year done that can revise anything in the fiscal year 17-18 budget and also the 18-19 budget for items that happen during the year that we learn of, if we get a new revenue source, an unexpected expenditure happens, so forth. And then usually the late October timeframe, I will be bringing a report back to council that'll report on how exactly June 30, 2017 closed. It takes about 3 months to get all the books closed to get prepared for our audit, especially like I mentioned, because we book expenditures back to the prior year as they come in. And at that time, we can really have an idea of how our exact fund balance looks for June 30, 2017. Then we'll know for sure what that, how much more the surplus increased. So on page 3 of the staff report is a summary of the general fund budget, which lists all the categories of revenues and of the expenditures in more detail than that's on this PowerPoint slide. Again, just giving what the total revenues are, and total expenditures. You can see for our next fiscal year, we're projecting $6,756,900 in Measure C revenues. And then in June 30th, 2019, $6,928,325 of Measure C revenues. These funds are committed for police services and code enforcement services. And you can see that outlined on page 2 of the staff report, where it outlines that code enforcement, it's set aside an amount necessary to fund 1 code enforcement manager, 1 code enforcement officer, 2 general laborers and any necessary equipment, and 1 development services engineering tech dedicated to code enforcement services. And then for police services, in an amount equal to total projected Measure C revenue in any given year, less the amount allocated to code enforcement. And there will be a base number that we compare that to. And the table on page 5, the Police Department Measure C funding, as directed by council, does remove the citywide admin portion of the cost allocation from that base. And you can also see on that chart where you see the total police budget, for example, in the revised fiscal year 17 column of 38.3, and then there's a negative 2.8. It's reducing the citywide admin just so we can get the net police department expense that's being accounted for against Measure C allocation. So that's just outlining it so that it's very transparent that that number is not being accounted for in the Measure C allocation. However, it is still part of the police department budget. It's just coming from other general fund resources. And then one item in particular I would like to point out, I did have it in one of our initial budget study sessions, but it wasn't really discussed in length other than me mentioning it. I updated the resolution for the budget to increase the reserve requirement from a minimum of 10% with a goal of reaching 15% up to 20% of operating revenues. The minimum of 10% was put into place when the city was hit with the recession. With our dwindling revenues and drastic expenditures cut made, the city council at that time agreed to a 10% threshold so that reserves could be tapped to help the city provide a minimum level of services to the citizenry. And now that we've been able to significantly increase our revenues and fund balance the last several years, this reserve policy was reevaluated, and we increased it to a fiscally prudent level based on current levels of operating revenues and expenditures. Increasing to a 20% reserve provides the city's general fund adequate funds for operating expenditures in any given fiscal year, and best practice for municipal agencies is to maintain an equivalent of at least 3 months of operating expense, as well as provide funds for unexpected or extraordinary events. And as you can see, we far exceed those in each of these 3 years that are being adopted, almost double. Now, this doesn't mean go out and spend money to get us down to that 20%. It's just as we move forward and we do have the deficit spending, it's just to keep in mind, yes, we're healthy and we have the reserves to deficit spend for a while, but we don't want to continually draw down and definitely don't want to go below the 20%. So that concludes my presentation on the report, and I'm available for any questions.
Yeah, Councilmember Tiscarino.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you for the budget study. It was a long process. We all endured it, but I think it was a good thing because we had an opportunity to line by line understand, our budget and what needs to be done here in the city of Antioch. I'm also optimistic that we are investing in our city. 3 or 4 years ago, a lot of us had that mindset, but we didn't think we had the wherewithal at that particular time. To be cautious, though, I think we do. But again, you had mentioned increasing the reserve base from 15 to 20%. I think that's a good base because we've been consistently at that 40% level, and we need to make sure that we do have those reserves. And I know that this council and the previous council, I believe, we spent wisely. I don't think we did anything that was construed as overspending or going crazy, because we were aware of what happened, 7, 8 years ago. We don't want that to happen again. So when I was reviewing and going through this budget study, I was scrutinizing and looking at everything out here, and I wanted to make sure in my mind that we can afford
a lot of these things. And because it's necessary for us to invest in our city, in the market our city, I come to the conclusion, from me, my perspective, that this is something that we can afford because it is our future, and we're not overspending. We're spending wisely. So I want to thank the council and staff for putting all of this together, because I think this was a smart budget, and it's a budget to be proud of. And I think it's a budget that once it's out there and people understand that we're going to be investing in our city, we're going to be more involved in trying to get out there and assuring folks that the city of Antioch is something to be reckoned with. This is a great start. So I'm really happy about this, and I look forward to putting a yes vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council comments? Questions? Councilmember Wilson.
Just a comment and to kind of also reiterate that we're making some really good investments, and I think quite a few of these investments are going to be we're going to see a lot of return on. So I'm happy with the budget, happy with the investments, and happy with there are a lot of opportunities. I think we're going to see it come back to us, probably double, maybe in some instances triple fold. So I'm looking forward to the next 2 years, and then next year, understanding the budget is fluid, that we'll get an opportunity to reevaluate and assess and see, do we hold back, or are we able to spend a little bit or invest a little bit more? So thank you.
Councilmember Overchop.
I'm just going to ditto on a lot of what they've said. I mean, I understand how much work you've put into this and staff, and I know it was painstakingly hard to break down the budget for us, but you did it, and you did it so that we could understand it. So I truly appreciate that. And the reserves, I'm glad we're getting back up the reserve amount, and I know you're very fiscally responsible in that area, and I appreciate that. This just goes to show that this council cares about the quality of life. So it's really a great tool for us to keep moving in the direction that we're moving. And you did hit the nail on the head about the Measure C. So once we get through this, we need to start looking at what we can do to make sure Measure C does not sunset. So again, I appreciate everything that you've done. Thank you.
Councilmember Thorpe.
Thank you, Don. You're wonderful. But I also want to thank Ron for his leadership on this, because this was your first rodeo on the budget. So I appreciate your leadership in getting us through this. And these are very important. I can only echo the comments of my colleagues in that these are very important investments in our community and to our quality of life. So I'm pretty proud of that. The only area that I think, and this is just for my colleagues, not necessarily a reflection of staff, is that we've toyed around with this idea of an economic development director, and I think we've kind of beat around the bush because we have an economic development manager, but her role is not an economic development director. And if we truly want to see an economic development director, and we want someone out there promoting the city and bringing the types of businesses and jobs we want in this community, then we're just going to have to, hopefully maybe in 6 months, to see what the fiscal outlook is like, we're going to have to really have a serious conversation about an economic development director, because that's something we've all campaigned on and talked about. And I've only lived here, but 4 or 5 years, and every election cycle that I've sat through, we've talked about an economic development director. So I hope that 6 months from now we can take a serious look at that as we continue to invest in the city and in our quality of life.
And I just want to echo the economic development director. I was toying with trying to somehow stuff an economic development director into this budget. And in order to make sure that it stayed balanced, we chose not to try to add one into this balance. But when you look at in 2 years, 2018-19 right now, we're showing a negative almost $3 million. That doesn't change by cutting staff. That changes by economic development. That changes by bringing in more revenue. That's what we need to do, and that's the importance of an economic development director. If we just continue to restrict and cut, we end up cutting to the point where you don't draw in new business. You don't draw in that revenue. And so we need to look at this. I love the language that council's using as far as investing. That's what we've done. And I think the economic development director, as we do that 6-month review, if we could find, if you look at their step pay, it's going to cost about $200,000, including benefits, to bring in an economic development director. But I think it would be $200,000 well spent for us to be able to start bringing in the kinds of jobs that our residents need, the kind of revenue that really drives us to that next level, so that we can start looking at PERS in the future and start seeing that revenue growth, as opposed to what do we have to do cutting to make it up? How do we grow to the point where we can cover? So it's exciting what we have and where we're at, and I look forward to working with council and staff in the near future. Do we have a motion? So we need to do 10, 11, and 12 all separate, or 9, 10, 11 separate.
Yes, separately.
Right.
I'll make a motion that the City Council adopt the resolution approving and adopting a 2-year operating budget for fiscal years 2017 through 19, appropriating the funds necessary to meet the expenditure set forth therein, and revising the fiscal year 16-17 budget.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Ogorchak, a second by Councilmember Thorpe. Please cast your votes.
There are 5 affirmative votes.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for item number 10?
Mr. Mayor, this will be the council members, and I'll so note in the record, the council members sitting as the Antioch Public Finance Authority, and that all 5 authority members are present.
Councilmember Ogorchak, motion number 10. Do you need her to read the resolution?
Yes, for the record, please.
Make a motion that Antioch Public Financing Authority adopt a resolution approving and adopting a 2-year operating budget for fiscal years 17 through 19, and revising the fiscal year 16-17 budget.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Second by Councilmember Thorpe. Please cast your votes.
There are 5 affirmative votes.
And item 11.
Item 11, this will be I'll note for the record that the City Council is sitting as the successor agency and housing successor to the Antioch Development Agency, and that all agency members are present.
Councilmember Tiscarino.
Councilmember Ogorchak just yielded this one to me, so. So I'll go ahead and make a motion that the City of Antioch, as successor agency and housing successor to the Antioch Development Agency, adopt a resolution approving and adopting the 2-year operating budget for fiscal years 2017 to 2019, and revising the fiscal year 2016-17 budget.
Second.
That's actually 17. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. You got that correct. My bad. We have a second by Councilmember Thorpe. Please cast your votes.
There are 5 affirmative votes.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody. Thanks, council. Thanks, staff. Item number 12, authorization to amend code enforcement consultant contract with TRB and Associates to extend the expiration date of the contract to June 30th, 2019, and increase not to exceed the amount by $500,000. I'll turn it over to City Manager Ron Bernal.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm going to turn this over to our Administrative Services Director, Nikki Mastay, who will be making the presentation on this.
Okay, what you have before you is an item that looks like it's to increase code enforcement, but actually what it is doing is adding a program to help our blighted neighborhoods. Our Union Local 3, when they read the staff report online, they alerted me and they said we would like to meet and confer on this item. So how it's couched, it looks as though like we're adding code enforcement to existing staff via a contract, and that's in violation of the MOU. So we would like to continue this item so we can meet and confer with the union and then move forward.
Do we have a motion to continue the item? Motion to continue by Councilmember Tiscarino. Do we discussion?
I just had a quick question. Was this part of the $300,000 from the budget we just approved?
That's correct.
Okay.
We have a motion by Councilmember Tiscarino, second by Councilmember Ogorchak, to continue this motion, to continue this item. Please cast your votes.
There are 5 affirmative votes.
Item number 12 has been continued. I'm assuming staff will bring that back after they've conferred. Moving on to item number 13, resolution for an exception to the 180-day wait period for post-retirement employment. Turn it over to City Manager Ron Bernal.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. Nikki Mastey, our Administrative Services Director, will be making this presentation.
Good evening. Our water quality analyst will be retiring in August, and this person is responsible for overseeing and supervising the overall operation of the water laboratory. They perform the most complex analysis of water, and they assure the city's compliance with water quality standards. The position also ensures that the water quality laboratory meets the certification under the Environmental Laboratory Accreditation Program, and they also submit the required reports to the state environmental protection agencies. This position is vital to public health. The position is currently being recruited for. If we're going to bring a retiree back within 180 days, it is a PERS requirement to bring a resolution along with an employment agreement to PERS. So that is what you have before you. And do you have any questions?
Councilmember Thorpe.
I'd like to make a motion that the City Council adopt a resolution for an exception to the 180-day wait period for post-retirement employment regarding the water quality analyst position.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Ogrechuk. And I will just say for those in the audience that are in business, this is the one thing in government that businesses don't understand. How can't you just understand when people are retiring? Ron has explained it to me. I get it, but I don't get it. So, thank you. Please cast your votes.
There are 5 affirmative votes.
I get it. Oh, I get it. Business doesn't work that way. Public comments. Dr. Lawrence Rashid.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I got here a little late, so I'm here nonetheless. First, I'd like to thank the Mayor for being supportive of GRIAT's effort. GRIAT is an organization, a mentoring organization for African American males. It's an acronym that stands for Greatness Rediscovering Our Time. And this past Mother's Day, we had the honor of having our honorable mayor be the MC. So I'd like to acknowledge him publicly for doing that. I hope the food was good. And my mother says hello, and she appreciated you coming out. So that's not why I'm here. I'm here for an event that we're going to be hosting on July 15th, and I'll give a couple of the tangible flyers to the council members. I'll also send you soft copies as well. The importance of this particular event is to address the mental health awareness of Black males. Oftentimes, Black males are looked at as pathological, and these axioms are really damning. There's been a lot of issues of late in dealing with Black males. There's been a proliferation of Black male suicide. I know personally, Rashawn Salam, a personal friend of mine, a couple months ago committed suicide. So we're really trying to get in front of these issues within our communities instead of being, reactionary. So again, I'm just making this announcement. This is a free event where we're going to have a bevy of resources available to, Black males, young and old. You could say males in general, and this is open up to the general public, but the topic at hand is Black males. So again, there's going to be a series of these types of conversations, and we're titling this Tackling a Taboo, because oftentimes we're too masculine or appear to be to really address the issues that we have. So again, like I said previously, we're trying to get in front of these issues instead of dealing with them, when they become too out of hand. So again, I would like to invite the City Council, the whole city of Antioch. The location's there on the flyer, but it's going to be at Delta Bay Church of Christ on July 15th, Doors open at 5 p.m. So again, I appreciate your support and look forward to seeing the whole city council there. Thank you.
Councilmember Ogerchuk.
I too forgot one today. We do have our monthly cleanup this Saturday. It's going to be at Kimball. We meet at 9 o'clock, goes from 9 to 11. So bring your kids out there. My grandson's out there. He loves going around and trying to pick it up with those little tweezer things. So bring them out and have some fun. Thanks.
Are there any other public comments? Any staff communications?
Yes, Mayor Wright and council members, just want to remind folks that next Tuesday, the city offices will be closed in observation of the 4th of July.
And a reminder that the Tuesday after that is not city council. We are dark.
Correct.
Any other staff communications? Council communications and future agenda items. Councilmember Ogerchuk.
Well, a couple things already came up tonight, but I had it under this area. And with Mr. Kidwell being here, I did speak with him today regarding this and the garage sales and whether or not people have a permit for those garage sales. I don't think that they do. I know some of them have not, and I believe they're supposed to have a permit. But I understood that we were allowed a maximum of 2 per year, and I believe if Hilda Parham was here, she might agree with me because she's a little watchdog on those. So I would ask, I know of a neighbor, when does it turn into a business? So if people are doing it every single weekend, when does it no longer become a garage sale, and when does it become a business for those individuals? So I would like to look at the ordinance to make sure that there is or is not an ordinance on how many we can have. And then I also did have a note in here about the economic development also. I too wanted to look at the 6-month time frame to see where we're at financially and to see how we can add that, because to keep going in the direction that we want to go, we do have to have a director in that department, and it has to be somebody that has specifically what we need with this city. Every city has their own little nuances, and we have our little niches, and we need to make sure that we have one that fulfills what we need. So those are my 2 things that I had written down. Thank you.
Councilmember Tiscarino.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say that I did have a great time attending the Junior Giants event to see all those kids out there, their enthusiasm running the bases, and they've been doing that for several years. So I thank the City of Antioch Recreation, PAL, all the folks that are involved in the San Francisco Giants of putting this program together, and I can't imagine this program not being in Antioch, so I think we're going to have this for a while. I also concur with Councilmember Ogerchuk on addressing the garage sale issue. This is not the only complaint that I've received. I've received several others. Seems like folks are. I understand people need to make some money, but it's there's a process. I know at one point in time that there was a limited in our municipal code of how many garage sales you can have. I don't know why we don't have that now. If we don't, I'd like to make sure that we look at that. But let's see if we can get something done with this, because I think it's important that we stay structured within our municipal code.
Any other council communication or future agenda items?
Get your food plates on Thursday. The food trucks have been an absolute success. Thank you, Nancy, and our good friend Lizette for their hard work in that. And I encourage the community to continue to go out on Thursday. It was a great opportunity to see the chief out there, Nancy and Nikki. I saw you out there, and so it was diverse. It was beautiful. I mean, folks were sitting around enjoying themselves. So my wife ranted and raved about how great it was forever and a day, and I finally said, okay, Pat, stop, I get it. But so continue your good efforts, and I encourage the community to get out there on Thursdays at 5 o'clock, starting at 5 o'clock until 9 p.m. To continue to support the food trucks. And that was an idea that was inspired by one of our own residents here in town who wanted to bring that to Antioch. So thank you to staff for working with them.
Councilmember Wilson.
Just a quick question to city manager and city attorney. because I spoke about human trafficking earlier today, the status or update on the ordinance spanning the hourly rate motels?
We are still in the process of working on that. So our new city attorney's been working on a couple of other items, so it's in the queue. So I don't have a date for you, but we'll talk and come back with one.
All right, hopefully soon. Thanks.
Very good. If there's nothing else, thank you all, and we are adjourned until July 25th.